I'm Kathryn. If you're new here, welcome to Left Undone Incomplete Investigations. My channel follows true crime cases, but I don't jump on the bandwagon and I don't do what all the other channels are doing. This is my, I believe, fourth video on the Orrin and Orson West case. Although this isn't specifically about the details in that case at this very moment, this video is about CPS, Child Protective Services. Many of the other channels out there right now are zoning in that something horrific has happened to these babies. My opinion, and this is just my opinion, but based on the facts that have been released by law enforcement, not by the Kern County housewives, but my opinion is based on the facts released by law enforcement that these children are alive. And I want to keep that hope alive. So let's talk about it a little bit more, and welcome to Left Undone Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathryn. Hi, and welcome back. I did a video about 7 months ago about a horrific case that took place in Southern California, out of Corona, California, Riverside County, which is a different county than the Orrin and Orson West case, but it is Southern California, and there are similarities. And a lot of stuff has been done in regards to Child Protective Services since that case. If you haven't seen that case, go back and watch it. The link is in the notes below. Go back and watch that case because it is a horrific case about a father who had the custody of his 2 children, and it was reported over and over and over again to CPS that this child was in danger. Yet, the child was never removed from the home. Now, as far as we know, CPS has never had a report on the West family. Not once. So when you compare these 2 cases, there's a lot of difference. CPS was involved with the West family because they did have foster children, and the Orrin and Orson were foster children before they were adopted by the Wests. So right there is a big difference as well. CPS obviously was comfortable enough to know this family because of the history with them in Kern County. Now, I know there's a lot of theories out there, and a lot of people believe that the Wests did something to these children. But the fact of the matter is, they have not been arrested. The fact of the matter is, law enforcement does not have evidence to believe these children were murdered, and it has been said over and over again. So with that being said, let's talk about this. Noah Mcintosh is the case I'm talking about out in Riverside County, California. This child was abused and murdered by his father. CPS was called many times and the child was never taken. Never. The body of Noah has not been found, but the father is waiting trial because there was plenty of evidence to suggest this baby was murdered by his father, Bryce Mcintosh. California CPS did go through quite a bit of a reform process in 2017, which could be directly related to what happened with Noah Mcintosh. California was already one of the strictest states when it comes to reform on this subject. I think Noah Mcintosh was actually a big part of the reform and why it happened, because the case with Noah is so horrific. Something had to be done. Baby Dylan Groves from Ohio also has many similarities. Now, there is some differences in Ohio and California laws. In Ohio, there is a mandatory consent to adopt a child, unlike California. The bio family does not have to give mandatory consent. In California, the consent is up to a judge. Baby Dylan's foster mother actually nursed him for 12 days, and she showed major signs of grief. The Wests don't display this grief because they are and have said that they believe these children were taken, not murdered. And remember, there was also an incredible amount of bio family yelling at them in the front yard while they were talking to the press. Dylan's mother describes the process of becoming a foster parent, including regular drug tests of anybody inside the home and extra training for medically fragile children.
Now, it's my understanding that you've been a foster parent. You need to answer out loud for us.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And when did you become a foster parent?
I was certified in July of 2017.
And what process do you go through to become a foster parent?
We have to take classes that train us, 40 hours of classes that train us about different things that we need to know as far as kids that might come into the system that we would be taking care of. And we have to have drug tests, medical physicals, home inspection, home studies. Anyone in the home has to take a drug test and also have medical physicals. There's a lot to it. There's the fire department had to come out and inspect the house to make sure it was safe. It's a lot of things.
Are there different types of foster parents that a person can become?
I'm sorry.
Are there different types of foster care that can be provided or training for foster parents?
Yes, there's. Are there different types of foster care?
Yes.
Yes, you can be trained completely to just foster, or you can be trained to foster to adopt. You can be trained for medically fragile foster children.
What type of training did you receive?
I received the foster to adopt training.
We believe that Orrin was considered medically fragile, and it has been said that he has suffered from fetal alcohol syndrome. You cannot drink while you're pregnant. There is no safe amount of alcohol that you can drink while you're pregnant, and it has been noted that Orrin has fetal alcohol syndrome. The overview from Mayo Clinic: fetal alcohol syndrome is a condition in a child that results from alcohol exposure during the mother's pregnancy. Fetal alcohol syndrome causes brain damage and growth problems. The problems caused by fetal alcohol syndrome vary from child to child, but defects caused by fetal alcohol syndrome are not reversible. There is no amount of alcohol that is known to be safe to consume during pregnancy. If you drink during pregnancy, you place your baby at risk of fetal alcohol syndrome. If you suspect your child has fetal alcohol syndrome, talk to your doctor as soon as possible. Early diagnosis may help reduce symptoms such as learning difficulties and behavioral issues. The severity of fetal alcohol syndrome symptoms varies, with some children experiencing them to a far greater degree than others. Signs and symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome may include any mix of physical defects, intellectual or cognitive disabilities, and problems functioning and coping with daily life. Fetal defects may include distinctive facial features, including small eyes, an exceptionally thin upper lip, a short upturned nose, and a smooth skin surface between the nose and upper lip. Deformities of joints, limbs, and fingers, slow physical growth before and after birth, vision difficulties or hearing problems, small head circumference and brain size, heart defects, and problems with kidneys and bones. So as you can see, there's also difficulty in schools, trouble getting along with others, poor social skills, trouble adapting. And the causes: when you're pregnant and you drink alcohol, alcohol enters your bloodstream and reaches your developing fetus by crossing the placenta. Alcohol causes higher blood alcohol concentrations in your developing baby than in your body because a fetus metabolizes alcohol slower than an adult does. Alcohol interferes with the delivery of oxygen and optimal nutrition to your developing baby. Exposure to alcohol before birth can harm the development of tissues and organs and cause permanent brain damage in your baby. The more you drink while pregnant, the greater risk to your unborn baby. However, any amount of alcohol puts your baby at risk. Your baby's brain, heart, blood vessels begin to develop in the early weeks of pregnancy before you even know you're pregnant. Impairment of facial features, the heart, and other organs, including bones and the central nervous system, may occur as a result of drinking alcohol during the first trimester. That's when these parts of the fetus are in key stages of development. However, the risk is present at any time during the pregnancy. Okay, for all of you that don't understand exactly what I'm talking about and think I'm accusing birth mom, bio mom, this was posted and screenshot and put in one of the groups. And yes, I observed it and read it and screenshotted it myself. On December 17th, 2016, so she was actually pregnant with Classic at the time. She says, Paprika Dean, bio mom, says, we going back to where we was yesterday. Her friend says, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be out. I don't feel good today. TD. She says, bio mom, girl, me neither. I was drinking knowing damn well I wasn't supposed to have been. It wasn't heavy though, shit. I was drinking a little with Sincere and he fine. I'm sure this baby will be fine too. And the friend says, all she was drinking was wine, so you should be good. And she says, LOL, yeah, wine and apple, E&J, LMFAO. And she says, I forgot you hit the E and J. So as I was saying, she knew. She flat out said right here that she knew she wasn't supposed to be drinking. I've showed you what fetal alcohol syndrome is and what happens and how it can cause harm. And yes, this is child abuse before the baby is even born. If you look at this picture of a child with, here's a picture of a child. They have a low nasal bridge, minor ear abnormalities, and you can just look thin upper lip, flat mid-face, and short nose. So there is some distinctive facial feature signs when it comes to a child with fetal alcohol syndrome. And in my opinion, when you look at the boys' faces, they definitely have some of these characteristics. So Orrin was abused before he was even out of his mother's uterus. And I will not back down on that one. That is a fact, and it is horrible. So in regards to that, I have little sympathy for the bio mom who had 2 years to do the work to get these children back and abused the baby before it was even born. To qualify as a foster parent, you must have a verifiable and stable source of income. This source needs to meet your family's basic needs, which means food, clothing, housing. Knott's Family Agency, Happy Parenting, Nurturing Children, and some information. It says, how much do foster parents get paid in California? And then it goes on to say, although parenting is a full-time job, you cannot think of fostering parenting as a way to cash out. If you're in it for the money, then you're fostering for the wrong reasons. Foster families don't actually get paid for taking care of a child. They receive reimbursement for the money they spend taking care of the child's needs. This money is not meant to be used to buy a new car or pay for your rent or some other expenses that don't have anything to do with the immediate essential needs of the foster child. Bear in mind that irrespective of the subsidy or financial assistance you receive, you will still be responsible for providing the essential items needed to adequately care for the child, and the financial cost of that will be borne by you. If you're planning on being approved and serving as a foster parent in California, you'll probably still want to know how much reimbursement you can expect to receive to help offset some of the costs of raising your foster child. And it goes on to say, we answer some of the most common questions prospective foster parents have about how much money they can expect to get paid and how the amount is determined, and other incentives they might be given to help take some of the weight of raising a child off their shoulders. Depending on the county where you're licensed as a foster parent, the reimbursement package ranges from $25 to $30 per day for each child. This amount increases if you're fostering a child with additional needs. We know that bringing up a child today is an expensive affair. The state tries to soften the impact on your finances even further by giving valuable tax breaks to foster parents. The state of California pays foster parents an average of $1,000 to $2,609 per month to help with the expenses from taking care of the child. It is one of the highest paying states in the nation in this regard. This figure is for each child you take in your home. The highest rate corresponds to children with additional needs because they will require more attention, time, and tending to than other children. Know that you cannot just pocket the payments and take the child to the hospital or visit other professionals that help with taking care of them. You need to be patient with children, shower them with more attention, listen, and learn their needs. Baby Dylan's CPS caseworker described the basic requisites that Ryan Dean would have had to do in order to get her boys back. Going into the CPS system, becoming foster children, taken away from their birth families. Again, as I'm speaking of baby Dylan Groves, this is a perfect example. This child was born with drugs in his system, and the mother and father were giving specific things they had to do in order to keep the child and what they had to comply with. But in the end, a dead baby found at the bottom of a 30-foot well was badly beaten, had drugs in his system, and was padlocked inside milk crates. A coroner's report revealed details of 4-month-old Dylan Groves' harrowing death after his body was discovered in June. Parents were charged with murder after the 4-month-old was discovered at the bottom of a 30-foot well. But when you look at the backstory, the parents, Daniel and Jessica Groves, were charged with their son's murder, but prior to their son's murder, this child was positive for drugs at birth, and there was a plan where they had to comply. And guess what? This baby still wound up dead. He was taken into custody of child services after he was born with drugs in his system, much like Ryan Dean's child. Baby Dylan was later returned to his father under the requirements that he attended court dates, home visits, and doctor appointments. But later on, the family vanished and the police were asked to intervene. I can do a whole video on Baby Dylan because it's an extremely interesting case, and you have to understand the process of CPS. They actually were there and involved when baby Dylan was born. And baby Dylan was born and mom was addicted to heroin. And they laid out some items of how and what can go on. However, this child was still wound up murdered by his parents or parent after having CPS intervene during birth. They gave these people the opportunity to make it right, and the child wound up dead. Death by homicidal violence. The Groves face a list of 8 charges, including murder, kidnapping, gross abuse of a corpse, and more. A toxicology report found that there was methamphetamine and amphetamine in Dylan's liver. 4 months old. He was actually came out positive when he was born with drugs in his system, given back, and wound up dead. So you tell me, where do you draw the line with these people? How do you know? Ryan Dean had one child with a fractured femur and the other born with drugs in his system. I don't care if you had a medical marijuana card or not. You're doing something to make yourself high and caring for a baby. I just showed you a message, a text message, or a Facebook post where she was completely unconcerned about the fact that she was drinking while she was pregnant. Where do you draw the line with these people? You tell me. Attorneys do a good job of changing the look and making people look more acceptable to society, to a jury. But this is their mugshots. Now look what they look like when they're sitting behind the court case.
Ma'am, the records I've put in front of you, what do they appear to be?
They are documentation from each caseworker
Okay, with regard to whom?
to Dylan.
All right. Would you check the back? There might be some in there for Daniel as well.
They are.
All right. Do those records appear to be accurate records of Children's Services records with regard to the Groves family?
Yes.
And are you familiar with these records?
Yes.
As we go through your testimony, it may be easier for you to be able to refer to those records as we go through, somewhat chronologically. So feel free to utilize those records. I might ask you for some specific dates as well. Okay. All right. You'd indicated that Children's Services had gotten involved in the case from a referral from the hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what hospital was that?
SOMC.
All right. And then you indicated that Ms. Johnson, Lauren Johnson, was the investigator that went to the hospital?
Yes.
And you'd indicated ultimately that Children's Services removed the child from the parents and took emergency custody. I'd like to go back before that to earlier on at the hospital. The records are there in front of you for reference. Initially, what was the Children's Services plan with regard to Dylan Groves?
There was an activity log on 111 where Caseworker Johnson spoke with Mr. Groves and stated that he had not known that Jessica's drugs use until they were coming to SOMC for Dylan to be delivered. Mr. Groves stated that Daniel Jr. and Dylan are his top priority and that he would do what he needed to do in order to keep them safe. Caseworker Johnson did a safety plan with Daniel Groves until lab came back with the results of the drug scheme. Jessica is out of the home and there is no unsupervised contact.
Okay. And I know it's in there, but I'm going to, for the sake of ease of access, of marked States Exhibit 9, Your Honor, as we showed the opposing counsel. Ma'am, I know this is part of this record, but could you identify this for the court?
That is a safety plan.
Is that the safety plan that you referenced in the Children's Services activity log that was initiated by Lauren Johnson?
Yes.
And if we could, see if you can read it from up here on the board. That's a horrible copy, and I apologize. See if we can make it read it. Okay, ma'am, I don't know if you can read that or not from there. Can you see the case name at the top?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna hand it back to you. I'm just gonna let you read it. This lighting is not great. All right. Ma'am, what's the safety plan you have there in front of you? What's the case name at the top?
Jessica Groves.
Okay. And as you have that there, I need you to really explain what's in that safety plan. So could you explain line by line what we're seeing, what you're gonna be reading from?
Okay, it says identify the safety threats and serious harm from which the children needs protection. And it states that Jessica's substance abuse was reported.
Okay.
Then it goes to the action steps, and it says describe the activities necessary to protect the children. And it says Jessica must get a drug and alcohol assessment and sign a release form for us to get copies of everything that she went.
Okay. Let's see if we have it in here. Is it in here?
The second action step would be Jessica is not to be left unsupervised with either child until further notice.
Okay, so the first step was that she wasn't going to live there,
Yes.
and then the second step was that she was going to not be left unsupervised with either child.
Yes. Then it says who will be responsible for the activities, and Daniel Groves would be the one responsible.
Okay. And on that, are there signatures at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay. So let me back up. So we've got who will be responsible for the activities. That's on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's explain how each activity will control the occurrence of serious harm.
The children will be protected.
Okay. And that the person responsible for that was to be Daniel.
Yes.
Okay. And how will the activities be monitored?
Home visit, and it was to be done weekly, and it was to be done by her, Lauren Johnson.
Okay. And then at the bottom, what do we have here? The signatures was.
The first one is Daniel Groves, the second one is Jessica Groves, and the caseworker's signature.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You can put that back in that folder. If you need to, at the top. Business records, children's services. Who did this January 11th activity log report? Let me back up. What is an activity log report?
Activity log is what we do as a caseworker, like when we go out and meet the family, what we discuss, what they discuss, and if they need any assistance of everything. We also check for the safety and the basic needs of the children.
Okay. So at the very beginning of a case, whoever from Children's Services is there is going to start logging their activities on the case.
Yes.
I really encourage you to pay attention to this because CPS does a lot more than talk to people. They make a plan, they have a schedule, they come in, they observe, they see things. So these parents, and you will see this mother in a minute, that blame CPS for taking their children, there's a log and everything is documented.
Caseworker Johnson met and spoke with Jessica Groves, and she stated that she realized she was pregnant in October when she felt the baby moving. Jessica stated that she has used heroin for about 6 months and continued to use until she found out she was pregnant because she did not want her nor the baby to withdraw. Jessica,
to use after she found out, she continued to use after she found out she was pregnant, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Jessica stated that she has not used in the home around her son or husband, and stated that her husband, Daniel, did not know of her drug use until the evening she delivered Dylan.
Okay. And does it go on from there on the next page?
Yes. Caseworker Johnson spoke with Daniel Groves as he stated that he had not known of Jessica's drug use until they were coming to SOMC for Dylan to be delivered. Daniel stated that Daniel Jr. and Dylan are his top priority and that he would do what he needs to in order to keep them safe. Caseworker Johnson did a safety plan with Daniel Groves until the lab work came back with the results of the drug screen. Jessica is out of the house and there is no unsupervised contact.
Dylan's mother accuses CPS of ruining their family.
Did Daniel Groves participate in the killing of Dylan?
No,
Tell the jury how you killed this baby.
it was an accident.
Not your excuse. How did you murder this baby? How did you cause these injuries?
I have sit here and admitted
Answer the question, please. How did you cause these injuries?
it was an accident.
Not your excuse for what happened. How did you cause these injuries? How did you cause those rib fractures?
By dropping him.
By dropping him. How did you cause that first 2-inch skull fracture?
I don't remember.
How did you cause that 1-inch skull fracture?
It had to be from dropping him.
How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture?
Nothing that I ever did was intentional.
I'm not asking for your excuse. How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture? Tell the jury.
I have to live with this for the rest of my
Answer the question.
life.
How did you cause that complete...
You have devoured my family.
Ms. Groves, you answer the questions that are asked of you. You understand?
I've admitted to my guilt.
How did you
And I
cause-
have to
How
live
did-
without
tell
my
the jury how you
children.
caused that
I'm done talking to you.
You are talking to me because you're sitting on the witness stand. Tell them how you caused that injury. Judge, I asked you to instruct the witness to answer the question.
Ms. Groves, by testifying, you're subject to cross-examination. You have to answer the questions on cross-examination that are relevant to these proceedings. This question is a relevant question. You will answer the question at this time.
Baby Dylan's mother accuses CPS of ruining their family, much like Ryan Dean and her family are doing. They are very actively protesting CPS, calling them out and blaming them, along with the Wests.
You know, I just don't feel in my heart that it's something. They're not.
Do you have a relationship with these parents?
I don't know them. I don't know them. They did something. I feel like they did something and they know something. They did something and I feel my kids is somewhere around here. I can feel it and I feel like they're in the house and I feel like they did something. I know I told them my last visit, when the visits prior to that, I said, when these kids used to be with her, they were fatter. My kids are skinny. They used to cry when they picked them up.
Mrs. Groves, baby Dylan's mom, cannot bear to say how she injured Dylan. Much like Ryan Dean will not admit that she was involved or had complete knowledge of the injury, the fractured femur for Orrin. Orrin's leg was broken as a very little newborn child baby. The femur is your thigh bone. There is no possible way that child could have broken that leg by itself. It's impossible. So clearly, immediately, the medical doctor was on to her when she brought the baby to the emergency room and they were able to diagnose a fractured femur. What do you suggest CPS should have done for Ryan Dean in the first place? Do you really feel that she should have been given even more chances after the child's baby was injured? Again, baby born with fetal alcohol syndrome, her not complying with the judge's order to go to the drug part of her conditions, when her saying all I was doing was smoking a little weed here and there. You know, when your children are taken away, you do whatever wasn't legal at the time. And if it was legal at the time and she had a medical marijuana card, which has been said that she didn't have it until after, either way, if that child was born with marijuana in its system. Now, the only thing that we know that has been screamed and yelled at the Wests of them doing wrong was leaving the gate open. And why is that more negligent, in some people's opinion, that the gate was open? Why is that more negligent than the fact that the child was taken away from Ryan Dean for having a broken leg? You know, both of them are bad, right? Which is worse? So that's enough for this episode of Left Undone Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathryn. Please like, please subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Stay safe, stay well. Bye-bye.